The observation deck of the research vessel Dawn hummed with quiet efficiency as Dr. Ra adjusted the long-range scanners for the 100th time that cycle. The scientist's elongated fingers, each ending in sensitive neural receptors, danced across the holographic interface with practiced precision. Her species had been studying interstellar ecosystems for over 3, cataloging dangerous predators across 17 different star systems. Nothing in her extensive experience had prepared her for what she was about to witness on the surface of 442b. "Commander, we have an anomaly," she called across the bridge, her voice carrying the melodic undertones that marked her as a senior researcher among her people. They had evolved from prey animals on there, developing heightened senses and analytical minds that made them exceptional observers of predator-prey relationships throughout the galaxy. Commander approached with the measured gait of someone who had seen countless worlds and their dangers. His species, were themselves formidable by most galactic standards, standing nearly 3 meters tall with chitinous armor plating and 4 arms ending in razor-sharp talons. Yet even they maintained a healthy respect for the apex predators that dominated hostile worlds like the one spinning below them. "What type of anomaly?" inquired, his compound eyes reflecting the blue glow of the scanner displays. "Another territorial dispute between the Ravagers and the Stone Crushers." Ra's antennae twitched with nervous energy. "Negative, Commander. We have a single life form reading moving directly through Ravager territory. The biosignature is unlike anything in our databases." The commander's mandibles clicked together, a sign of deep concern among his people. 442b was classified as a Category 5 death world, home to some of the most lethal predators ever documented. The Ravagers alone stood 4 meters at the shoulder, weighed nearly 2 tons, and possessed claws that could slice through reinforced titanium. Their bite force exceeded that of the ancient Terran T-Rex by a factor of 6, and they hunted in coordinated packs that had been observed taking down creatures twice their size. "Could it be a survey drone from one of the mining consortiums?" suggested, though his tone indicated he already suspected otherwise. "The biosignature is definitely organic, Commander, carbon-based bilateral symmetry, but the mass readings are—" She paused, recalibrating the sensors. "This cannot be correct. It reads as approximately 75 kilograms. A silence fell over the bridge. Even the junior technicians stopped their work to stare at the display. 75 kilograms was barely larger than some of the smaller scavenger species on the planet. Nothing that small could survive in Ravager territory for more than a few minutes. "Run a full spectrum analysis," the commander ordered, "and prep the emergency beacon. If there's an intelligent species down there that doesn't know what they're walking into, we need to extract them immediately." Dr. Ra's research had focused specifically on apex predator behavior for the past 50 standard years. She had studied the pack dynamics of the void stalkers of 7, witnessed the feeding frenzies of the crystal serpents on Titan's 4th moon, and documented the hunting strategies of creatures that gave nightmares to seasoned space marines. The Ravagers of 442b represented the pinnacle of evolutionary killing efficiency, perfect predators, that had eliminated all competition on their world over the course of millions of years. The planet's ecosystem was a testament to their dominance. The few surviving species existed only because they served the Ravagers' purposes, either as prey animals that bred quickly enough to sustain the population, or as smaller predators that helped maintain the prey species' numbers. Everything else had been systematically hunted to extinction. "Commander, I'm detecting movement from multiple Ravager packs," reported Lieutenant from the tactical station. The young's voice carried barely concealed terror. "They're converging on the unknown biosignature's location." Through the ship's advanced sensors, they watched as the mysterious creature continued its steady progress across the planet's harsh landscape. It moved with purpose, navigating rocky canyons and dense forest with surprising efficiency. Most remarkably, it showed no signs of the frantic movement patterns typical of prey animals. Instead, it seemed to be moving directly toward the largest Ravager pack on the continent. Dr. Ra pulled up the behavioral analysis protocols that had taken her decades to perfect. "This makes no sense from an evolutionary standpoint," she muttered, more to herself than anyone else. "No creature would deliberately seek out an encounter with Ravagers unless—" She stopped, her scientific mind rejecting the impossible conclusion her data was suggesting. "Unless what, Doctor?" Commander prompted. Unless it's a predator itself, Commander. But that would mean it's something more dangerous than the Ravagers, which should be impossible given the size differential. The bridge crew watched in fascination as the first pack of Ravagers came into sensor range of the unknown creature. These were some of the largest specimens ever recorded, the Alpha standing nearly 5 meters tall, with scars across its armored hide that spoke of countless battles. The pack had been responsible for the destruction of 3 separate research outposts over the past decade, forcing the Galactic Survey Corps to classify the entire region as off-limits to all but the most heavily armed expeditions. Through the ship's advanced imaging systems, they could see the creature more clearly now. It was bipedal, moving with a fluid grace that seemed almost casual despite the hostile environment. Its body structure was unlike anything in their databases, relatively small and appearing almost fragile compared to the massive predators that called this world home. "The Ravagers have detected it," Lieutenant reported. "Pack formation suggests they're treating it as potential prey." Dr. Ra watched the tactical display with growing amazement. The Ravagers were executing a perfect pack hunting strategy surrounding their target, cutting off escape routes, and preparing to strike in coordinated waves. It was a technique that had never failed them against any creature on their world. The unknown being stopped walking. "Why did it stop?" whispered the lieutenant. "It has to know it's surrounded." Through their sensors, they could observe the creature's vital signs. Heart rate was steady, respiration normal, stress hormones at baseline levels. By every measure available to their advanced scanning technology, the being showed no signs of fear or panic. Instead, it seemed to be waiting. The Alpha Ravager emerged from the tree line first, its massive form casting shadows across the clearing. The creature that had dominated this continent for thousands of years fixed its predatory gaze on what should have been an easy meal. Its packmates moved into position, 8 fully grown Ravagers, each one capable of destroying a small starship with their bare claws. The unknown being turned to face the Alpha. Dr. Ra leaned forward, her scientific instruments recording every detail. "Commander, we need to document this. We may be witnessing the extinction of a newly discovered species, but the behavioral data could be invaluable for understanding predator-prey dynamics." What happened next would haunt the dreams of every crew member aboard the Dawn for years to come. The Alpha Ravager charged. The unknown creature didn't run. It didn't freeze in terror like every other documented prey species. Instead, it moved forward to meet the charge with a fluidity that physics. At the last possible second, it shifted its weight and pivoted with impossible precision, avoiding the Ravager's claws by mere centimeters. The crew watched in stunned silence as the small being somehow managed to position itself behind the massive predator. Before the Ravager could turn, the creature leaped onto the Alpha's back with a grace that spoke of perfect timing and absolute confidence. "What is it doing?" Lieutenant breathed. Commander's compound eyes tracked every movement. "I believe," he said slowly, "it's hunting." The unknown being moved with a precision that transformed violence into art. Its hands found specific points along the Ravager's spine, applying pressure with surgical accuracy. The massive predator, which had never known defeat in its entire existence, suddenly found itself unable to shake off something that should have been little more than a minor irritation. Dr. Ra's instruments detected the exact moment when the Ravager's confidence turned to confusion, then to something that registered as pure shock in its primitive nervous system. The Alpha tried to roll, to scrape its attacker against the rocky ground, but the small creature adjusted its position with each movement, maintaining its grip with an almost supernatural understanding of leverage and anatomy. The rest of the pack circled uncertainly. In their simple minds, the situation made no sense. The Alpha was in distress, but they couldn't attack without risking harm to their leader. Their hunting instincts, honed over millions of years of evolution, had no framework for understanding what they were witnessing. The unknown creature's hands moved to the Ravager's neck, finding pressure points that no creature on this world should have known existed. The Alpha's struggles became more frantic, then gradually weaker. Through their biomonitors, the crew of the Dawn watched as the unstoppable predator's life signs began to fade. "It's actually killing it," Dr. Ra whispered, "with its bare hands." The moment the Alpha Ravager collapsed, the dynamics of the encounter shifted completely. The pack, deprived of their leader and faced with something their instincts couldn't categorize, began to back away. These creatures that had never shown fear of anything in their lives were retreating from a being one-tenth their size. The unknown creature stood slowly, rolling its shoulders as if working out minor muscle tension. It looked around at the remaining Ravagers with what could only be described as casual assessment, as if deciding whether they posed enough of a threat to warrant its attention. One of the younger Ravagers, driven by instinct or desperation, made a tentative advance. The creature turned toward it with fluid grace, and something in its posture made the massive predator freeze mid-step. After a moment that seemed to stretch for eternity, the Ravager slowly backed away, its head lowered in what appeared to be submission. "Commander," Dr. Ra said, her voice barely above a whisper, "I need to revise our classification of 442B. We may no longer be looking at the apex predator of this world." The unknown being began to walk again, continuing its journey across the landscape with the same unhurried pace it had maintained before the encounter. The Ravagers melted back into the forest, giving it a wide berth. Word would spread through the ecosystem with the speed that only terror can achieve. The unchallenged rulers of this world had just learned that there was something higher in the food chain. As the crew of the research vessel watched through their sensors, they began to understand that they had just witnessed something unprecedented in galactic history. Not just the defeat of an apex predator, but the casual demonstration of a type of predatory behavior that transcended simple physical superiority. The unknown creature wasn't just strong or fast or armed with natural weapons. It was something far more dangerous. It was intelligent, patient, and utterly without fear. It hunted not from instinct but from choice. Dr. Ra began compiling her preliminary report, her hands shaking slightly as she recorded her observations. Somewhere in the galaxy, there was a species that could kill with surgical precision, that moved through hostile environments like they owned them, and that treated the most dangerous predators known to science as minor inconveniences to be dealt with efficiently and without emotion. The question that would haunt her research for years to come was simple. If this was how they dealt with apex predators, what were they capable of when truly threatened? The emergency session of the Galactic Research Council convened 6 standard days after the initial report from the dawn. Representatives from 14 different species gathered in the sterile chambers of Research Station Omega-7, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of clicks, whistles, and harmonic vibrations that the universal translators struggled to process simultaneously. Dr. Ra stood before the assembled council, her presentation materials floating in holographic displays around her. The weight of her discovery pressed down on her like a physical force. In her 40 years of research, she had never delivered a report that would fundamentally challenge the scientific community's understanding of predatory hierarchy. "Honored members of the council," she began, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was about to reveal. "We have documented the existence of a previously unknown apex predator species that demonstrates hunting capabilities beyond our current classification systems." Council representative, or of the Crystalline Collective, spoke first, her voice resonating through mineral formations that served as her vocal apparatus. "Dr. Ra, your preliminary report suggests that this creature killed a fully grown 442B Ravager using only primitive physical contact. Our mathematical models indicate this should be physically impossible given the size and strength differentials." Dr. Ra nodded respectfully. "That was our initial assessment as well, representative, or... However, continued observation has revealed hunting techniques that transcend simple physical dominance." She gestured to the holographic display, which began showing the enhanced sensor recordings from their extended surveillance mission. After the initial encounter, the crew of the Dawn had maintained a discrete observation pattern, documenting the unknown creature's behavior across multiple environments and situations. "What we initially interpreted as a single anomalous encounter has proven to be standard hunting behavior for this species," Dr. Ra continued. "Over the past 6 days, we have recorded 17 separate predatory interactions, each demonstrating a level of tactical sophistication that suggests advanced cognitive abilities." The display showed the creature's subsequent encounters across the planet's surface. In each case, the pattern was remarkably consistent. The being would enter territory dominated by dangerous predators, allow itself to be detected and surrounded, then systematically disable its opponents using precise knowledge of alien anatomy and pressure points that should have been impossible for it to possess. Representative of the military caste leaned forward, his heavily armored form creating audible stress fractures in his chair. Dr. Ra, are you suggesting that this creature has somehow acquired detailed anatomical knowledge of multiple predatory species without prior exposure? That appears to be correct, Representative. More disturbing is the efficiency with which it adapts to new opponents. She highlighted a specific sequence showing the creature's encounter with a pack of crystal serpent silicon-based predators whose internal structure was fundamentally different from carbon-based life forms. Watch how it approaches this encounter. The council observed in silence as the unknown being faced creatures that moved like liquid metal, their crystalline bodies refracting the planet's dual suns into blinding light displays. The crystal serpents were ambush predators that relied on optical confusion to disorient their prey before striking with razor-sharp appendages that could cut through most known materials. The creature studied them for exactly 37 seconds before acting. Its first movement was so precise that several council members requested the sequence be replayed at reduced speed. The being had somehow identified the central nervous cluster of a crystal serpent, a structure buried deep within layers of silicon matrix that no external examination should have revealed, and applied pressure with such accuracy that the predator's entire body went rigid instantly. "This is unprecedented," whispered Representative Ra from the Peaceful Collective. Her species had evolved from herbivores and maintained detailed records of predatory behavior purely for defensive purposes. The anatomical knowledge required for such precision would take our best years of study to acquire. Dr. Ra advanced to the next sequence. The pattern becomes more disturbing when we examine its behavior toward pack structures and social hierarchies. The recording showed the creature's encounter with a colony of hive stalkers predators that operated through pheromone-based communication and collective intelligence. These creatures had developed hunting strategies that incorporated quantum entanglement principles, allowing them to coordinate attacks across vast distances instantaneously. The unknown being had walked directly into the center of their territory and simply stood still. For 18 minutes, it remained motionless while the hive stalkers gathered around it. Their complex pheromone communications filled the air with chemical signals that normally preceded feeding frenzies. The entire colony was preparing for what should have been an easy kill. Then the creature moved. Its actions were so subtle that the council members had to watch the enhanced slow-motion version to understand what had occurred. The being had released its own pheromone mixture, one that perfectly mimicked the hive stalker's chemical language. But instead of prey signals, it had somehow produced the exact combination that designated a superior alpha predator. The entire colony had immediately submitted. "How is this possible?" Representative demanded. "Pheromone production requires specific glandular structures that would be visible on any bioscan. Our sensors detected no such structures, Representative. Yet the chemical analysis confirms that the pheromone mixture was produced by the creature itself, not by any external device." Dr. Ra moved to her most disturbing findings. "Council members, we need to address the implications of what we've observed. This being doesn't simply kill other predators. It dominates them through superior intelligence and adaptability. It learns their weaknesses instantly and exploits them with surgical precision." The holographic display shifted to show a three-dimensional map of 442B's ecosystem. Red markers indicated the territories of major predator species, while blue trackers showed the unknown creature's movement patterns over the past week. "It's systematically working through the entire food chain," Dr. Ra explained. "Not for food, our metabolic scans indicate it requires significantly less nutrition than its hunting activity would suggest. It appears to be establishing dominance over the entire planetary ecosystem for reasons we cannot yet understand." Representative Aura from the Deep Space Monitoring Alliance spoke for the first time since the session began. Her species possessed the galaxy's most advanced sensor technology and had been responsible for detecting countless new life forms across 30 different star systems. "Dr. Ra, have you considered the possibility that this creature is not native to 442B?" The question sent a chill through the assembled council. If the being was from another world, It raised terrifying questions about what kind of environment could have produced such a perfectly adapted apex predator. We have considered that possibility, Representative Aura. However, our deep space monitoring networks have detected no recent arrivals in the 442 system. If this creature came from elsewhere, it would have had to arrive through means beyond our current detection capabilities. Or, said Representative grimly, it could have been here much longer than we assumed, simply avoiding detection until now. Dr. Ra nodded slowly. That brings us to our most significant concern. Yesterday, our long-range sensors detected what appears to be artificial structures on the planet's surface. The holographic display zoomed in on a section of the planet's northern continent. What had initially appeared to be natural rock formations revealed themselves under enhanced imaging to be precisely constructed shelters built into the landscape with such skill that they were virtually indistinguishable from their surroundings. The construction techniques are unlike anything in our architectural databases, Dr. Ra continued. The materials appear to be harvested from local resources, but the engineering principles suggest an understanding of physics and chemistry that rivals our most advanced civilizations. Representative Or's crystalline structure brightened with agitation. Are you suggesting we're dealing with an intelligent species rather than a simple predator? That's exactly what I'm suggesting, Representative, but not just any intelligent species. We're looking at a civilization that has achieved perfect harmony with predatory behavior. They don't simply hunt, they've turned hunting into a science. The implications of this discovery rippled through the council chamber. An intelligent species that treated apex predators as minor inconveniences suggested a level of development that challenged every assumption about the relationship between intelligence and violence in evolved societies. Dr. Ra, Representative Ra asked quietly, have you made any attempt at communication? We transmitted standard first contact protocols on all known frequencies. The response was unexpected. The holographic display showed a series of mathematical equations transmitted back to their ship within minutes of their initial contact attempt. The equations were elegant solutions to theoretical physics problems that the galactic scientific community had been working on for centuries. It solved the unified field theorem, Dr. Ra explained. In 17 minutes, then it transmitted coordinates. Coordinates to what? The exact location where it wanted to meet us. The council chamber fell silent. The implications were staggering. This creature had not only demonstrated superior predatory skills, but had also casually solved advanced scientific problems and was apparently interested in face-to-face contact. Representative activated his combat protocols, his armor extending protective plates automatically. Dr. Ra, you cannot seriously be considering making physical contact with this entity. With all due respect, Representative, I believe we may not have a choice. Our analysis suggests that this being has been aware of our presence since we entered the system. It has chosen not to interfere with our observations, despite having the capability to do so. She brought up the technical specifications of their research vessel. The Dawn is equipped with military-grade shields and weapons systems capable of orbital bombardment. Yet our security chief has identified no fewer than 47 different ways this creature could have disabled our ship, using only the natural resources available on the planet's surface. That's impossible, Representative Aura stated flatly. We thought so too, until we ran simulations based on the engineering principles evident in its shelter construction. This being understands leverage, materials science, and energy dynamics at a level that allows it to turn any environment into a weapons platform. Dr. Ra paused, letting the implications sink in. Council members, we're not dealing with a simple predator or even a primitive intelligent species. We're looking at something that may represent an entirely new form of evolutionary development, a perfect fusion of physical capability and intellectual advancement. The meeting continued for several hours as the council grappled with the ramifications of first contact with a species that challenged every assumption about the development of sentient life. Some representatives argued for immediate evacuation and quarantine protocols. Others suggested that the potential scientific advances from peaceful contact outweighed the risks. As the debate raged, Dr. Ra found herself thinking about the creature's patient behavior during their observations. It had demonstrated the ability to kill efficiently, to dominate through fear, and to solve complex problems instantly. Yet it had chosen to wait, to allow them to study it, and to initiate contact through intellectual rather than physical means. Perhaps the most unsettling aspect of their discovery was that this being seemed to be studying them just as intently as they were studying it. And unlike the predators it had dominated with casual efficiency, the research team couldn't shake the feeling that they were being evaluated rather than simply observed. The question that haunted Dr. Ra as the council session drew to a close was whether humanity, for that was what the creature had identified itself, as in its mathematical communications, was deciding if the galactic community was worthy of survival. The landing shuttle descended through 442B's atmosphere with unprecedented security measures in place. Dr. Ra sat in the passenger compartment alongside Commander and a diplomatic team that represented the galaxy's most experienced first contact specialists. Behind them, concealed weapon systems remained powered but inactive, while overhead, 3 heavy cruisers maintained orbital overwatch positions. Despite these precautions, everyone aboard understood that their safety depended entirely on the goodwill of the being they were about to meet. Landing zone confirmed clear, reported Pilot Officer Ra from the cockpit. No hostile life signs detected within a 50-kilometer radius. Commander checked his armor seals one final time. That's because everything with survival instincts has fled the area, he muttered. Their bioscanners had detected massive ecosystem displacement over the past 3 days. Every predator species on the continent was moving away from the coordinates the human had provided, creating an expanding zone of emptiness that every principle of territorial behavior they had studied. Dr. Ra reviewed her protocols again, though she suspected that standard diplomatic procedures would be inadequate for this encounter. The mathematical communications they had received over the past week demonstrated an intelligence that operated on multiple levels simultaneously. The human hadn't simply answered their questions, it had anticipated their concerns and provided solutions to problems they didn't even know they had. The shuttle touched down in a clearing that seemed too perfect to be natural. The ground was level, the surrounding vegetation cleared to exact specifications for their landing requirements, and the soil composition had been modified to provide optimal stability for their equipment. Everything suggested that their landing site had been prepared with detailed knowledge of their shuttle's capabilities and needs. "How did it know our technical specifications?" whispered Cultural Aura. Her species specialized in understanding alien motivations, but the human's behavior patterns every model she had developed over centuries of study. "It's been watching us much longer than we've been watching it," Dr. Ra replied quietly. "The question is how much it has learned." The shuttle's exit ramp lowered with a soft hiss of equalizing pressure. The delegation stepped onto the surface of 442B under a sky painted in shades of amber and deep purple by the system's binary stars. The air was thick with the scent of alien vegetation and carried an underlying note of ozone that spoke of the planet's violent electrical storms. The human was waiting for them. It stood approximately 50 meters from their landing site, motionless except for the subtle movements of breathing. At first glance, it appeared almost disappointingly ordinary bipedal, roughly the same height as an average, with symmetrical features and skin that reflected the ambient light with surprising efficiency. But Dr. Ra's trained eye caught details that made her nervous system flood with warning chemicals. The way it stood suggested perfect balance and instant readiness for movement in any direction. Its hands hung loose at its sides, but the positioning indicated precise awareness of distance and timing for potential defensive responses. Most unsettling was its eyes' organs that seemed to track multiple targets simultaneously while maintaining focus on the primary group. "Dr. Ra," it said, and the sound of its voice speaking her name in perfect pronunciation made her antennae twitch with shock. "Commander, Cultural Aura, I appreciate your willingness to meet in person." Commander's combat protocols activated automatically at the casual demonstration of intelligence gathering. "How do you know our names and languages?" The human's facial features shifted in what their translation software interpreted as amusement. "Your communication systems broadcast identification protocols along with your diplomatic messages. Your languages follow logical patterns that are relatively simple to decode once you understand the underlying mathematical structures." It paused, tilting its head in a gesture that somehow conveyed both curiosity and evaluation. I should probably introduce myself properly. My name is, and I represent the human settlement on this world. Settlement? Dr. Ra stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overriding her caution. Our surveys detected no signs of permanent habitation. That's intentional, replied. We've learned to be discreet about our presence. The galaxy can be a dangerous place for species that aren't prepared to defend themselves. The implications of that statement rippled through the delegation. This being was suggesting that humans deliberately concealed themselves from galactic civilization not out of fear, but as a protective measure for others. Cultural Aura activated her behavioral analysis protocols. Mister, may I ask how long your people have been present on this world? Approximately 400 of your standard years. We established our first settlement here after our initial survey fleet determined that the ecosystem would provide adequate training opportunities. Training opportunities? Commander's voice carried the tone of someone who suspected he wasn't going to like the answer. Gestured toward the surrounding landscape, where the absence of predator life signs created an eerie quiet that contrasted sharply with the planet's reputation as a death world. 442b hosts some of the galaxy's most efficient apex predators. It provides an excellent environment for developing tactical and survival skills. Dr. Ra felt her research protocols engaging automatically. Are you saying your people came here specifically to hunt the local predators? Not hunt, corrected gently. Train with them, there's a significant difference. The human began walking toward a grove of trees that hadn't been visible from orbit. The delegation followed, noting how every step he took seemed to account for optimal positioning relative to potential threats, escape routes, and terrain advantages. It was the movement pattern of someone who had internalized predatory thinking so completely that it had become unconscious behavior. The galaxy is full of dangers that most species aren't equipped to handle, continued as they walked. Hostile environments, aggressive wildlife, territorial disputes between civilizations. Humans have found that we can serve a useful function as intermediaries in situations that require specialized skills. They emerged into a clearing that revealed the true scope of human habitation on the planet. What had appeared from orbit to be natural formations were actually sophisticated structures built into the landscape with such skill that they seemed to have grown there organically. Buildings flowed seamlessly into rock faces, their materials harvested and processed from local resources, but engineered to specifications that made their research vessels' construction seem primitive by comparison. This is impossible, whispered Pilot Officer Ra over the comm system. Our deep surveys should have detected this level of construction activity. Stopped and turned to face the delegation. Your technology is quite impressive by galactic standards, but you're looking for industrial signatures that match your own development patterns. Human engineering takes a different approach. He gestured toward one of the structures, which seemed to shift slightly as if responding to his presence. We learned early in our expansion that brute force solutions often create more problems than they solve. Our architecture works with natural systems rather than overwhelming them. Dr. Ra approached one of the structures, her sensors detecting complex energy patterns woven through materials that registered as simple stone and organic matter. The integration of technology with biological systems is beyond anything in our databases. How long did this development take? About 40,000 years, replied casually, though the last 10,000 have been the most productive. The delegation exchanged glances. 40,000 years suggested a civilization that predated most galactic records. If humans had been developing in isolation for that length of time, it explained their apparent technological advantages, but raised new questions about their intentions. Mr. Cultural Aura began carefully. If your people possess such advanced capabilities, why haven't you made contact with galactic civilization before now? Was quiet for a long moment, his gaze moving across the delegation with that same evaluative quality they had noticed during their initial observations. When he spoke, his words carried a weight that made the implications clear. Because we've been watching, and we haven't been impressed with what we've seen. Commander's armor plates shifted automatically into defensive positions. Are you threatening the galactic community? No, Commander. I'm explaining why we've chosen to remain isolated. His tone remained conversational, but something in his posture suggested that the question had struck closer to sensitive topics than he was comfortable with. Your civilizations have a tendency to solve problems through overwhelming force or by avoiding them entirely. Neither approach works well when dealing with existential threats. Dr. Ra felt pieces of a puzzle beginning to fall into place. You're talking about more than just planetary predators, aren't you? Nodded slowly. The galaxy faces challenges that most species aren't even aware of yet. Hostile entities from outside our local galactic group, ecological collapses that threaten entire star systems, and technological developments that could destabilize reality itself. Your civilization's responses to these problems have been inadequate. He began walking again, leading them toward what appeared to be a central gathering area where other humans were visible in the distance. The delegation noted that each human they observed moved with the same fluid efficiency and their positioning relative to each other suggested tactical awareness that was either instinctual or the result of extensive training. So you've positioned yourselves as guardians, Aura observed, monitoring galactic civilization and intervening when necessary. We prefer to think of ourselves as insurance, replied. Most problems can be solved through diplomatic channels and technological solutions, but sometimes situations arise that require a more direct approach. They entered the gathering area, where approximately 50 humans were engaged in various activities. Some worked with technologies that seemed to blend organic and mechanical principles seamlessly. Others practiced combat techniques that incorporated elements from martial arts traditions the delegation didn't recognize. All of them paused in their activities to observe the visitors with the same evaluative intensity that had displayed. How many human settlements exist throughout the galaxy? Dr. Ra asked. Enough, answered. We maintain a presence in most star systems that host intelligent life, usually in environments that other species consider too hostile for habitation. It allows us to respond quickly when situations require intervention. Commander studied the humans around them with professional interest. What kind of interventions? Gestured toward a group engaged in what appeared to be advanced technical training. 3 months ago, a mining operation in the Rigel system accidentally breached a containment field around a dormant quantum entity. The resulting energy cascade would have destabilized the entire system's gravitational balance within days. We never received any reports of such an incident, said. Because it was handled before it became a crisis, explained. A human intervention team neutralized the entity and repaired the containment field using methods that your technology isn't currently capable of duplicating. Dr. Ra felt her understanding of galactic history shifting. How many such incidents have there been? More than you might expect, less than there could have been. The expression grew more serious. The galaxy is entering a period of accelerated development. New technologies, expanding civilizations, and increasing contact between species that evolved under completely different circumstances. The potential for catastrophic mistakes is growing exponentially. Cultural Aura processed this information through her diplomatic protocols. Are you suggesting that human intervention will become more visible in the future? We're suggesting that it may become necessary, replied. Which is why we decided to reveal ourselves to your research team. The galactic community needs to understand that there are options available when conventional solutions prove inadequate. He stopped walking and faced the delegation directly. Dr. Ra, your research into predator-prey dynamics caught our attention because you're asking the right questions about survival and adaptation. Commander, your military experience gives you the framework to understand strategic thinking on a galactic scale. Cultural Aura, your diplomatic skills could be valuable in preparing other civilizations for what's coming. What exactly is coming? Dr. Ra asked. Look toward the alien sky, where the twin stars were beginning their synchronized sunset that would paint the horizon in colors that had no names in any galactic language. Change, he said simply. The kind of change that either transforms civilizations into something stronger and more capable, or destroys them entirely. The delegation stood in silence, processing the implications of everything they had learned. They had come to study what they thought was a primitive predator, and discovered instead a species that had been quietly protecting galactic civilization for longer than most recorded history. What happens now? Commander asked. Smiled, and for the first time since their meeting began, the expression seemed entirely human rather than calculated. Now you go back and decide whether the galaxy is ready to know that it's not alone in facing the darkness between the stars. As the delegation prepared to return to their shuttle, Dr. Ra realized that her research into apex predators had led to a discovery far more significant than she had ever imagined. Humanity wasn't just another predator species. They were something entirely new in galactic evolution, a civilization that had learned to hunt the things that hunted civilizations. The question that would dominate the rest of her career was whether the galaxy was ready to accept the protection of guardians who could dismember apex predators with their bare hands, or whether fear would drive them to reject the only thing standing between civilization and the chaos that waited beyond the stars.